Welcome back to Jen's Hangouts. Anyway, today we are back, actually same day, just afternoon instead of morning. We're going to finish this up with Mom on the pine needle baskets. So this is going to be part 3. She also has some recommendations for some books that you can check out. And I'm just going to show you some more of her baskets, different styles that you can do with some gourds and things like that. It's really cool. So come hang out with us and check out what she's got left.
All right, here we are. I have worked my way around, worked up a couple of rows. This is where we'll be ending. This is the point of movement. So our coil is going to come around here and we want it to end here, right? So to make a nice finished, almost level top, as level as we can get it, we want to taper our coil. So that means that we're going to keep it as close to our working thickness all the way around, but when we start getting over here, we're going to have to taper it out. So what I have done is I have taken, actually, when I have added needles, I have cut them in half so they were shorter in length because I don't need any more length. If you kind of lay this around here, yep, got away from me, you can see that I will have plenty of length, but I still need some thickness to that coil. So like I said, I've taken my needles and you can snap them in half, break them in half to keep your coil the proper thickness. Feed it in there. So they're only going to end up about here, right? So we're going to work our way around to this point. One very, very important thing, when you know you are ready to do your last coil, your last ring around there, you want to make sure that you have plenty of thread, because we are going to work our way around and then we are going to go backwards in a cross stitch fashion. Okay, you don't want to have to add thread at this point. So make sure you have plenty of thread to work with when you get to this point. So we are going to finish this.
Don't show your finger.
Try not to. Okay, and I'm trying to be fairly quick about this.
It's okay. Fast forward. I have the technology.
All right. Okay, I can feel my coil thinning out just a little bit, so I'm going to take the other half of that needle. I have a bad spot here. I'm going to bust that off.
You should have shown that.
Showed the bad spot?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I did.
Not
Sorry.
very well.
Okay. So anyway, I'm going to put that short piece in there to keep my coil a decent. It will thin out slightly, but you don't want it to get too thin, but you also still need it to taper, if that makes sense, because we don't want to end very bluntly here. It's not a very attractive way to finish a basket.
Unless you're doing something fancy.
Well, unless that's part of your design, yes. But this will give you a nice, even top edge of your basket.
This is the perfect size basket for your earrings or rings.
Yeah, Jennifer's going to take this home with her for her little trinkets. Yeah, sometimes your arm gets a really good workout pulling this thread when you have a lot of it. Who needs to go to the gym, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Especially during quarantine.
Yeah.
Creative workout methods.
Yeah, I prefer to actually work on a table, but there are a lot of coilers that will, sit in their recliner and, work in their lap. I just started out this way and I actually prefer it.
Yeah.
But whatever's comfortable for you. And again, I will stress, don't be too critical of yourself, of your work. It will all work out. See, now we're coming around. This is where we're going to end, right? Well, we've got way too many needles here, but we will trim them in such a way that we will taper in. I'm going to take a few more stitches. And I will, at that point, remove my gauge because I won't need it anymore. See, and our coil is tapering down just slightly. Not too extreme. Find the right thread there. Okay, so I am at a point where I can actually remove my gauge. So I'm just going to set that aside here. And I am going to estimate, guesstimate, lay out my needles here and figure I'm going to need to end about right here. So what I'm going to do right at this point is just kind of make a blunt cut here. Get out all of this extra that we don't need, won't need. See, now that's a blunt cut. We aren't going to want that. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to try to trim out the needles that are inside the coil. Trim them back, usually at an angle, and not all the same length. So one needle is going to be cut at this point, another needle will be cut back here at this point, this one out here.
So like thinning your hair?
Yes, yeah. I mean, you can cut a couple of needles, but continually lay it out here and see how that will be. We're still a little long here, so I'm going to trim off just a little more. And this is just kind of, work at it a little at a time. Okay, we're going to take a few more stitches here, and we will probably trim a little more, a few more. Now, as you're working your basket, if you have the points, the ends of the pine needles that stick out, don't worry about those, especially if you're working with dry needles. Even if you're working with the damp needles, when you let your basket dry, those little tips, those little sharp points that you'll see, I don't have too many here, but they will just snap right off.
Well, and if you seal it too.
Yes. I've had baskets that by the time I got through working them, they look like a porcupine. Little pine needle points sticking out all over the place. So, if you're working with the moist needles like I normally do, you just wait till the basket dries. Mm-hmm. And like I said, you just go along and you just pop those little tips off. All right, we're looking not too bad here. I'm going to trim this one here. It's not going to need to be that long.
I could see where like the little stork shears would work really well with these.
Yes, yeah. A sharp little point scissor. Okay, and be careful here because these blunt ends of these pine needles will poke you. I have bled before. Tried not to bleed on the baskets, but they are sharp.
Yeah.
All right, so almost.
I've picked up a bunch for you and poked myself.
And while I'm working on this, I guess, if you want to gather needles, I'm very fortunate. My tree that provides me the nicest, longest needles I have happens to be right off of my driveway. So I can just go out after a good blustery day and find beautiful pine needles laying in my gravel driveway. So we are almost to the end, right? We are going to continue to stitch in this direction.
When we go scouting for hunting is when I hunt for needles for you.
Yes, there are lots and lots of pine trees out there, but not every pine needle is basket worthy.
Yeah, it has to be what, 10 inches minimum?
At the very minimum, 6 inches.
Yeah.
That's kind of difficult to work with. Preferably you want 10 to 12 inches. So I am actually going to make one more stitch to catch just the end of that.
Wow, that really is full of coat hair, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's going to be a fuzzy basket.
Everything in my house is full of coat hair, no matter how much we vacuum.
Yeah. So, one last stitch here.
I'm sure anybody who's gotten a package from me has gotten coat of sprinkles.
Yes. So, dump out my little tips there. So we've completed this direction. Now we are going to come back and we are going to lay our thread across the top and we are going to create a cross stitch around the top edge of this. It gives a very nice finished look. It makes the very top edge sturdier, so it will be a sturdier basket for you. So what I prefer to do is I lay the thread across so I can see my little X that's created. And it tells me right here at this junction, I'm going to push my needle straight in. That tells me where I need to go.
Like doing a back stitch when you sew something in a sewing machine.
Yes, yes. And this will also anchor down our last little tips there. Now, you can look and there's, a slight little bump, but that blended in pretty well.
Yeah, it looks real good.
Okay, so again, I lay this across, create my little X, and right here where it makes a junction, I push my needle straight in.
And that's a sturdy little basket.
It is. You would be amazed. Pine needle baskets have lasted 100 years. Lay it over, find the junction point, push my needle straight in.
Does the museum here with the basket display, do they have pine needle baskets in their display?
I don't know. It's been so many years since I've been in the museum.
I know, same here.
I don't remember. Okay. So we're going to continue that all the way around here. And then I'll have one last little trick to show you how you end the basket.
They'll be back.
Yes, I will be back. All right. I have worked my way around. See the nice little X's that create that nice top rim, right? It's going to be nice and sturdy and strong. So we're about at our last stitch. Well, no, last 2 stitches. And this will be where we have to somehow end our thread, right? We can't just leave it hanging. So I will put one more stitch there. So to end our thread, what do you think we're going to do with it? Can't tie a knot on top. That would be ugly. So we're going to go in where we would have gone in to create our last X. But instead of going through that way, we are going to go straight down. Let's see if I can show this. This is where I would have gone in. I'm going to push my needle straight through. And this is where your handy dandy little needle nose pliers come in, right? So you're going to carefully,
without bending your needle,
see where that's coming through? You want to go through at least 2, hopefully 3 to 4 rows of coils. So I'm going to pull this through carefully. Get a stronger grip. There we go. Okay. Now I can pull that all the way through. Tuck my needle there.
Did you just stick it in your pants?
That's what I do to hold it, but I caught it there. That way I don't lose the needle out on the floor by chance.
That would suck.
All right. So there we have created our last little X. Our thread is fed down through those coils, and that little puppy is secure. It is not going to go anywhere, right? So we're going to bring our scissors in here and just nip that as close as we can. And voila, thread is hidden.
Basket finished.
Basket finished.
Fabulous.
Yes.
But what did you say about the wet knit?
Okay, little disclaimer here. So, I was working with dried needles, correct?
Yes.
We looked at those at the beginning. They were flexible. We could move them. The these are very flexible needles. Okay. The needles that I have here at home, I don't have another one here, but they were brittle.
Yeah.
So you had to soak them to work with them. When you work with needles that have been soaked and you have kept damp, that's when it's extra critical to keep your stitches very tight and very close. So you end up with a very tightly coiled basket, because when those damp needles dry, which you have to dry your basket at the end, your basket will shrink. They shrink slightly.
Right.
So if you don't have a tightly coiled basket to start with, you're going to end up with a really floppy, loose basket at the end when it dries.
Right.
So in this case, our basket is completely finished. If we wanted to put a sealer on it, we could. You can use beeswax, the water-based acrylic, but it is fine on its own, and it is one stout little puppy.
Yep.
Right?
It is.
It does not have
Any
much flex. Right? So if you use the damp needles, you'd have to let your basket dry. Depends on where you're at. Could take a day, 2 days, 3 days. Make sure that it is very, very dry before you try to apply any finish to it.
Right.
So there's our little basket.
It'll go on my dresser.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to show you just a couple quick things here. This happens to be one that I am currently working on for myself or for sale. So this is a gourd that I've grown in my garden, and I colored it with alcohol inks, right? Just kind of fun colors. I'm using the same needles that I've worked with all day. I will probably do a couple more rounds here, and I will finish this off, and then this little guy is going to be a lid. All right?
Like this one.
Yes. So that's what I'm currently working on. That little lid will end up kind of like this one. See, this was the top of a gourd that I had cut the bottom off of. So I made a lid out of it, but I had a pine needle base.
I love
This is,
detail that you
here's
did.
another little, this is just a little rope of seagrass that I added as a little embellishment. There's just a wood slice, a limb that you've trimmed. Cut a slice, drill holes in it. You can see all the little holes where I've started my stitches, right?
And it's just a bigger version of what you just did.
Yes, absolutely. But that's where I took the leftover piece of a gourd and created a lid. So those are with gourds. This is another gourd that I turned on its side and created just a little wrap of dyed pine needles. That's something else you can do. So there's lots of things that you can do with your pine needles. I do want to end by saying that I've been doing this for 6 years. I still consider myself a beginner. There's so much more for me to learn, but I have gotten better every year. But this is what I consider the Bible. I refer back to this all the time. You can find this book on Amazon. It's like $14, if that much.
I'll link it in the description.
Okay. It is a very good go-to for beginners and as you advance. So I highly recommend this when I give any of my classes.
Yeah.
That people get this. So we'll figure out what I'm going to offer on my Facebook art page. And hopefully you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
Blessings to you all. Love you so much.
Yes.